Cuba, an island nation in the Caribbean Sea, a communist country and a member of the non-aligned movement. It survived more than 50 years of US-imposed sanctions aimed at toppling the former leader Fidel Castro. At the memorial of the late former President Nelson Mandela, a glimmer of hope that US and Cuba would mend relations. This handshake between Raul Castro and Barack Obama started the process. But when President Donald Trump assumed office, relations were again at an all-time low. But South Africa continued to strengthen ties, sealed by Fidel Castro and former President Mandela. Many former presidents of the ANC have visited Cuba.
Cuba has offered the African continent generally a contingent of 3,500 doctors who would come and assist with regard to dealing with the health challenges on the continent. We support that program.
Cuba played a very critical role in Africa, but more in particular in Southern Africa just before our liberation.
Many young South Africans are receiving medical training in Cuba. The arrival of the Cuban medical team further cements relations.
My spirits were lifted last night when I heard that 219 Cuban health workers had landed in our country. This follows the request I made to the President of Cuba when the coronavirus was beginning to rear its head in our country, and I asked the Cuban government to send us their specialists. And indeed, they have lived up to that. We sent a plane, but we also sent medical supplies to them. As you know, they are still facing a really terrible blockade. So the medical supplies also went to Cuba, but the plane brought back all these specialists, epidemiologists and pandemic specialists and many others. This is a continuation of the wonderful relationship that President Mandela forged with President Fidel Castro. So we are benefiting from the great strides that Utatu Nelson Mandela made for our country. We are going to spread them throughout the country so that they can bolster the efforts that our really courageous health professionals and health workers are making in fighting this pandemic. So we are truly, truly elated and excited that the Cuban health workers are here.
Sophie Mkwede, SABC News, Johannesburg.